Hello, another day, another frustration. So, under the lovely net zero, we are seeing the Mad Miliband push through a solar farm development in Lincolnshire that is the size of 1,700 football pitches. As I keep saying, everything about net zero seems to be anti-green, anti-nature, anti-wildlife, anti-food security and anti-energy security, and anti-everything good, really. So Mad Miliband thinks that just shipping in masses of solar panels from China, who are ka-ching, 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 as they build another coal plant to deal with all of this manufacturing of generally slave labour-made solar panels that aren't recyclable, and some have been found to have some technology in them that China could potentially remotely switch off. Anyway, why would any government seemingly target farmland and the production of food? Like, you have Italy, who've banned solar panels on farmland, arable land. Extremely clever. Not really, very just common sense. But Miliband seems to be specifically targeting arable land when it could be put on over car parks, on roofs, on factory roofs, on council buildings, wasteland, industrial areas, etc., etc. But they just go after beautiful areas and areas that produce food. And at the same time, we've just had record wheat imports this year, which no doubt have added to the inflation, because we'll have to pay more than if it was just being produced down the road here. So we've had record wheat imports. We've had a terrible harvest because we haven't had a lot of rain and it's been very grey. And last year we had a terrible harvest, worse than 35 years, I think, because we had so much rain and very grey and everything rotted. So at a time that our harvest yields are at the very lowest, we have Miliband paying over in excess for imports. They seem to also want to destroy the little food supply, arable land that we have left. Does that make any sense to you? What did the communists start with again? Back in like Stalin and stuff. Was it the farmers? Was it the food production? I think it might have been. Anyway. And another thing that just depresses me a little bit today is what depressed me the most with COVID, actually, and how apathetic and generally pathetic so many adults are. And that I've found that those that don't want to see or don't want to look into, the very reality of what's happening around them and don't want to talk about it, generally fall into two camps. One, like I've had today, they just don't want to know the bad stuff because it affects their seemingly happy life, and they don't want to discuss anything that's challenging or annoying, frustrating, depressing. They just don't want to know, quite selfishly. And well, maybe I sometimes think, well done you, just enjoy your life. There is a part of me that I think that's probably quite a good concept in this world, but generally they don't want to know because it affects their lives. And then there's the other camp, which I also had today, where you can just see it's not going in when you talk to them. Their brains literally can't compute the level of insanity that we are facing these days. And nutters like myself, who've been going on about things for years and years, have unfortunately spent too much time researching and looking into journals and articles. And, the amount of knowledge is quite crazy on some subjects for myself. So when you talk to just some normal person who isn't aware of any of this stuff because they just watch the BBC for 10 minutes every day, it's too much for their brain to comprehend. But it is generally the fact we have so many of these two camps in the UK that I think that we seemingly take so long to get out of the the sand that we're sinking down into. If we had more people challenging things, if we had more people say, why are you bothered? Why do you talk? Well, Jesus Christ, if we all just put down tools, then what's the point about anything? if we have more people shouting, emailing their MPs, like spreading the word to other people, perhaps we wouldn't be in the mess we're in. So yeah, sometimes I think, what's the point? But I think we all need to do our little bit, whether it's just talking to your neighbour, because it's all that domino effect of knocking on that information, making more people aware, and then maybe it won't, you know, it'll make things harder for the sadistic kind of government we have now to push ahead with doing certain things. But hey, that's just me. Anyway, have a good afternoon.